Cool. So, for those who don't know me, welcome everyone. My name is Esteban Parra Guerrero. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I serve as the coordinator for the LGBTQ programs and services and gender programs and services. I also support the Men's Success Initiative at the Fresno State Cross Culture and Gender Center. Lastly, I have the privilege to serve as the vice president for the Fresno State Latino Faculty and Staff Association. Before we begin with today's program, I would like to offer a land acknowledgement. The Fresno State campus sits in the midst of the San Joaquin Valley, a valley rich in the traditions and representation of Native American peoples and cultures. We're grateful to be in the traditional homelands of the Yokuts and Mono peoples, whose diverse tribal communities share stewardship over this land. Once again, welcome everyone. Happy Women's History Month. Today's program is hosted by the Fresno State Latino Faculty and Staff Association and the Gender Programs and Services of the Cross Culture and Gender Center. We have great questions, great dialogue, and great leaders to talk about their leadership and experiences as women in higher education. Our MCs for today's are Brianna Caesar and Aide Navarro. And we highly encourage for all of you to please hold your questions towards the end of the program. And we also encourage you to use the chat box feature to drop kudos, words of affirmation, and positive comments. With that being said, I would now like to welcome Bri and Aide. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bri Caesar. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Gender Programs and Services Student Coordinator here at the Cross Cultural and Gender Center, and I am a third-year pre-vet major here on campus.
Thank you, Bri. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Aide Navarro, and I am a staff member here at Fresno State. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in counseling. I'm a two-time Fresno State alum, and I currently work over in the Division of Research and Graduate Studies office as a graduate degree specialist. And as a graduate degree specialist, I have the honor of working with graduate students and providing assistance and advisement to them from the point of admission all the way to the point of graduation. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here today. So today I'm excited to welcome our panel. Joining our panel today are Kim Camarena, Dr. Yolanda Dodd, Martina Granados, and Dr. Patricia D. Lopez. In this order, I would like to ask the panelists to please share with us your name, your pronouns, your role or roles here at Fresno State, and your educational journey. Things like what inspired you to pursue your career, what challenges did you encounter on your journey, and what lessons did you learn along the way? Kim, please get us started.
Thank you so much, Aide. Hello, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank CCGC and LFSA for the opportunity to be here alongside these wonderful women. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here. My name is Kim Camarena. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and ella. My campus roles, I'm currently a first-year graduate student in the Higher Education Administration and Leadership Program, or HEAL. And I am also an employee here on campus with the Division of Research and Graduate Studies. So for me, education has always been a huge part of who I am. I have always enjoyed school, I've always enjoyed learning, and I come from a family that has always highly valued education. And from a very young age, I have always been encouraged to do well in school, and it was also expected for me to move on to obtain a degree. Family has always been an essential component of my educational journey. My parents, my brother, my sister, my hubby, who has probably seen the most vulnerable and emotional side of me along this journey. They have always encouraged me and have always given me the strength to keep pushing forward even in the toughest days. However, even with a great support system, navigating higher education has been a challenge. Between familiarizing myself with an unknown system, my resources as a student, adjusting to academic and campus culture, and even declaring a major. I simply can't begin to share all of the pressures I felt as a student. So my educational journey has been bumpy to say the least. I identify as a woman, a Latina, a first-gen student. But despite all challenges, I was able to complete my degree, my bachelor's degree in social work. And after working in higher ed for a couple of years and having the opportunity to reflect on my journey, I sparked interest in pursuing a degree in which I would have the opportunity to help students that have similar challenges to what I had. Fast forward to now, I'm in the HEAL program, and I continue to learn in different capacities. Some of the most important lessons that I've learned is that sometimes you have to be willing to unlearn to be able to grow. You don't always have to do things by yourself, and it is okay to have a community to support you, as well as the importance of giving yourself patience and grace. And a huge shout out to my HEAL faculty and my HEAL cohort that really support me and encourage me to learn all of these important lessons. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. My name is Yolanda Daub. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a professor of Spanish in the Department of Modern and Classical Languages and Literatures, which is a really long way of saying I teach Latin American literature and culture. And I'm also the president of the Latina Latino Faculty and Staff Association, which is just a delightful support group on campus, and I'm so honored to be president. My educational journey, I am from the public school system in East San Jose, and I had a little bit of a culture shock going from public elementary and high school to a private university, Santa Clara University. I have a BS in psychology and Spanish. And it took me a little while. My path was a little convoluted at first. I couldn't decide if I wanted to pursue a career in law or if I wanted to take this track and go into higher education. So I worked in a law firm for a few years and realized I respected the people there, respected the work, but I missed the environment of a university, and more than anything, I missed the flavor of the Latin American literature. I'm a heritage speaker of Spanish. I would listen to Spanish a lot in my family. I would hear it. I would speak just a little, but being in an environment where I'm just surrounded by literature, culture, people from all kinds of different countries, that diversity, I really missed that. And so that inspired me to get into first a master's program at the University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado, in literature in Spanish. And then each semester I felt a little more like I was on the right path, like I'd found the right path. It was not easy. It was really, really hard at first, especially after taking 3 years off between my bachelor's and my master's. But it got easier each semester, and each semester made me feel more like I was doing the right thing. I was being challenged intellectually and with new perspectives in ways that were good for me. And so then I went on to my PhD, and I graduated with my PhD in Spanish, Latin American literature and culture. And I've been here at Fresno State since 2005. In terms of challenges, I said it was really hard. Health issues, family issues, things come up. You know, I mean, I'm sure most people in this room have experienced the joy of you have your plans, we all have our plans, and we're on a track, and life will throw surprises at us. Sometimes rather unpleasant surprises. And what it taught me was the importance of just doing the best that I could on that day. And I learned the hard way that I think, like we all learned the hard way, whatever your best is, whatever my best is, may be different from one day to the next, depending on what's going on. What matters is just to keep plugging along. And just keep going. And you'll get where you want to go with that perseverance. Okay, I think that's the short version, and I know there are more questions that cover some of this stuff. So I will cede way to the next speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martina Granados. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I'm the Director of Outreach and Special Programs. In my educational journey, first and foremost, I feel that it began at home. I am a middle child of 14 siblings. So I had my first teachers were my parents and my 7 older siblings, as well as my 6 younger ones. My formal schooling first began in Mexico. Then when I was about 7 years old, we migrated to California. And I went to school here in the Central Valley in middle school, high school. Once I graduated from high school, I applied to Fresno State and started right here at Fresno State, right into college. And when I came to Fresno State, I had declared liberal studies major. I wanted to get a teaching credential, which I pursue, after obtaining my BA in liberal studies. I continue on to do my master's in counseling with the PPS credential as well. And then a few years later, I also went ahead and completed the administrative credential. What inspired me to choose this career that I'm in, initially, I think it was my teachers, in Mexico. In Mexico, those of you that, have family or, had the opportunity to go to Mexico and school, the level of respect that we have for our teachers. They're like our second parents. So I had a lot of respect, and I admire the work that they did. Later on, when I was here in California, I continue to respect my teachers, the role that they played, and the love for learning and teaching, that they were having for us. But I was also fortunate enough that I was surrounded by very good role models that were also in the educational field. And that's what also continued to make me feel inspired to pursue the master's and the credential, and even eventually stay here and work at the university. My colleagues or people that I interact with, on a daily basis, they continue to inspire me to stay in this field and not make a career change, now after so many years. And the challenges that I faced, throughout the years, were several, like some of my colleagues have mentioned. I think one of the first ones that I would say, was a challenge or a barrier was the language barrier, just coming from Mexico to California, a lot of new things that I had to get used to. It was also, as I progressed in the years of school, it was also maybe the lack of individuals that looked like me. I graduated from a high school that is about an hour away from here in Chowchilla, yet we didn't really have any Latino teachers or professional staff, the counseling. So I didn't get a lot of the proper advising. I was not college ready. I did not have all my A through G classes. So when I came to Fresno State, I was blessed and fortunate to come in through both the EOP program and also the College Assistant Migrant Program, CAMP. So because of those 2 programs, I was able to gain admission to the university under the special admissions and the condition of going to Summerbridge. Other challenge that I experienced was also not having enough money or even know how to work and budget, the financial aid that I did receive. So I had to work multiple jobs, anywhere from babysitting cats to, odd jobs, that would help pay the rent and move forward. Other challenges that I would say that I faced was also down the road, when I was working on my master's, I was a mom, I became a mom. So juggling being a mom and then also a student and then working full time on top of all that. And, those were just some of the challenges, but the lessons that I've learned, along the way or in life is to persevere. And then also to learn that it's okay to ask others for help, that we don't have to do things alone, to break things in smaller chunks at a time so that it doesn't become too overwhelming. And most importantly, to not quit if what we're wanting to do is actually the goal that we have in life. Time will go by. So what if you take 2 classes at a time, or it takes you 5 things to accomplish that goal? What matters is that you don't quit, that you go on. And then lastly, it's that whatever decisions, I make, they will affect or benefit my own life. It will not be something that I can expect someone else to decide for me, or for me to blame others to say that they pursue me on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all of that, Martina. Appreciate you always. My name is Patricia Lopez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm assistant professor in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction in the Kremen School of Ed, and I also direct Enseñamos en el Valle Central, which is an HSI grant here on campus. When I think about my journey, first I need to acknowledge that I'm the daughter of Abel Corralejo Lopez, who I recently left us or was taken from us, and Evelynina Palomino. I was born and raised in Visalia. So if we have any Tulare County folks, shout out to you. I'm also a graduate of Sequoia Continuation High School in Visalia, a first-gen college student, but I'm not the first in my family. Even though I'm the oldest child, I was not the first in my family to go to college. My younger sister was actually the person who opened that path for me, and played a really important role in my eventual journey into community college. Then I transferred to UC Santa Cruz, where I studied social psychology, Latinx studies, Latino studies, and then went off to UT Austin, where I received a master's and PhD in ed policy and planning, with a doctoral specialization in portfolio and Chicanx Latinx studies. What inspired me to pursue my career? Well, I think foremost, like my colleagues here, my family, my community, and certainly early experiences definitely kind of molded me, right, to who I am today, and just the choices in general that I make about just who I am in the world, including my profession. And, as a child, growing up in Visalia, Tulare County, right, I was very immersed in art, poetry, breakdancing. I wanted to be a fly girl. If you asked me what I wanted to be when I was in elementary, I think I still secretly do. My cultura, I definitely, shout out to Northside Community Center and the mentors who really reminded me daily that I was talented, that I came from a long lineage of strong people, strong women. And I also was, really impacted. My career choices in particular were really impacted by my K-12 journey. I was not the student out winning awards, even though I was dope, and like many Latina youth, like young people, right, I wasn't in AP or college courses, even though, I was capable. Instead, I was going to middle school, integrating into middle school. I was put into zero tolerance programs that they used to call schools within a schools. Right, then they called it learning opportunity, right? So kids that question their teachers, young people who questioned the books that they were being assigned to read, and such. So very early on, I was structured out of school, very alienated from school, and so by high school, I turned 16. I had been working, pretty much bounced. Like it just wasn't a place for me. I didn't feel any sense of belonging. I didn't have educators who looked like me, who grew up like me, who felt an investment in me. So just like society, right? Educators really played a role in my journey. And it wasn't until later that I really began to see those connections. And so those, I think it speaks to the question of challenges in my journey, which definitely, again, inform my path, my path of being here, what I do today, which is, I'm highly invested ever since I did begin going to school, really focused on just the experiences of young students of color and the teachers who teach them, and even non-students of color, right? Like we have, a lot of just hostility towards young people because of the way they think, the way that they present themselves, and God forbid you challenge an educator. And so for me, you know, my job today to prepare and nurture future educators is really about making sure that they don't go into the classrooms putting that harm onto young people. You know, some lessons that I've learned many lessons. I learn lessons every single day. I'm learning here, just listening to the folks who've gone before me. But I think something that really stands out to me is just particularly working class, you know, Chicanas, Latinas, who don't come from social or class privilege, don't really self-select into things that they are qualified, oftentimes overqualified for. And I just feel strongly that it's important to recognize, go out of your way to recognize talents, particularly among individuals who, you know, they're not wilding out, like, you know, giving themselves props. They're not, you know, out there, you know, inflating or like talking about the things that they do, because they're really grounded in the work in the communities they serve. And, you know, and that's something I hold. I really go out of my way and try to find folks who are doing a lot of important work in the margins. And I feel it's important to uplift that. Thank you.
Thank you all panelists for sharing such inspiring, you know, stories of challenges. I myself, I don't know if Bree can also relate, but I could relate in the aspect of like I can hear all four of you talk about family. And I think for myself, that was like the one anchor that kept me kind of chugging along even through all of these challenges. And again, I could relate to different aspects of all of your guys' stories in some form or another. So just thank you so much for sharing all that. Moving on to our next section, I'm just gonna give a little bit of instructions on how it'll work. So the next section will consist of 6 questions, and then to be answered between a faculty and a staff member from our panel. Panelists will have about 2 minutes to discuss these questions, and then I'll go ahead and get started with the first one. So this one's for all 4 panelists. If you could please tell me how you identify and how those identities inform your leadership. And again, it's open to anyone who wants to chime in.
I can go ahead and start. Thank you, Aide. So I identify as Latina. I identify as a woman. I identify as a first-generation student. And those are perhaps like my top 3 identities in higher ed. And of these 3 identities, I just thought it was important to share that perhaps the one that I have struggled with the most is my Latina identity. For the longest time, I felt like I had to hide this, despite my parents encouraging me, like, no te olvides de tus raíces, or don't forget your roots. And just navigating, you know, like public education. I come from a mostly a very small community, and I felt like I had to do that. And it really wasn't until I entered higher education and going through that educational journey and being in an HSI, a Hispanic Serving Institution, that I learned to grow and really embrace that identity. Because I started, you know, seeing students that had that, you know, similar identity and those similar goals. And that's what really pushed me to embrace my Latina identity. As to how those identities inform my leadership, I would say that it has helped me become self-aware, being consistent, learning to have empathy, and recognizing strengths of those around me, but most importantly, to acknowledge each other's identities and continuously affirm that we belong. That would be what I would have to say. So I'll go ahead and defer to the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. So I identify as Latina. I am also Güera, and that mixture, the mismatch between how I look and how I feel has informed a huge part of my career and just who I am in the world, as a person in the world. I look like my mom's side of the family. Culturally, I relate more to my dad's side of the family, where I grew up just being surrounded by by Spanish, and then my godparents are Mexicanos, and again, I'm from East San Jose, so there's always a little cognitive dissonance in my upbringing, and it's fueled me in some good ways, I think, as an individual and as a leader. I don't think it's an accident that the research that I do tends to focus on the journeys of formation of individuals, and how individuals find their place in the world between what society expects, which is often influenced by race, class, gender, sexuality, etc., versus what the individual wants. Anyway, my brain is bilingual, and I feel most comfortable in diverse settings, which is why I love Fresno State, which is why I love our students. I love all of you are here. I mean, the Latino Faculty and Staff Association, this has turned out to be a great fit for me. I recognize, because of my background, that I'm in a position to be a bridge sometimes, that visually, if people don't know me, assumptions tend to be made. Here's this very, very pale, redheaded, blue-eyed person. She's not Latina, she doesn't speak Spanish. So it's an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity, and I appreciate the opportunity. I value it highly to try and be a bridge. And it also helps me understand different perspectives more, and hopefully help other people come to appreciate different perspectives. It's a constant challenge at the same time. Even I can think back to elementary school, seeing how something in human nature, people of all different backgrounds seem to want to classify and categorize and make assumptions based on a phenotype, and how inaccurate that is so often. So that really informs a lot of who I am and the work that's important to me. Thank you.
Okay, so how do I identify myself? I did identify myself as a woman, as a mom, as a daughter of campesinos, someone from the farm working background, Mexicana, and certainly someone that is very blessed. I like to hold myself accountable, to others, to the people that I surround myself with. I consider myself someone that never stops learning, or that's someone that never stops even growing. I strive to continue to improve myself, daily. I consider myself someone that likes to respect others, and I give the respect that I want to be also given. I don't believe that it's something that someone just deserves, but it's something that the respect needs to be earned, as well as the trust. My role or title here, on campus, it's something that for me personally, it could change, tomorrow or down the road. So I find that to have my title, the position that I have, be something that defines the person that I am. I value for people to get to know me as the person, that I am. So people that have interacted with me, they know that I want them to feel comfortable around me, not just, have this status of, oh, she's the director, or this is what we need, not someone that is just there temporarily in their lives. But I hope that as I interact with people, that I'm someone that they will consider as a resource, for forever, not just momentarily or for a short period of time. I consider myself someone with good values, good ethics, and that I have strong beliefs that I applied in the decisions that I make daily also. Because I feel that the person that I am, it's someone that I have to hold myself accountable to, that it's not just something, that I'm going to pretend to be. So I consider myself someone with integrity also, whether I'm being watched, not watched, who I am, it's who I'm going to be 24/7, no matter the crowd or the group of individuals, or again, like I mentioned earlier, the position that I'm, or the title that is tagged to my name. So thank you.
Thank you, Martina, again. Yeah, I identify as woman, a cisgendered woman of color, an aspiring chingona at times. I'm the descendant of peoples from what is today called Mexico. I self-identify as Chicana with an X in front, which for me really acquiesces to indigenous ancestry, right? Something that, you know, was very much a part of growing up, practices, traditions, embodiments that later I had the opportunity to really explore and understand that and affirm, you know, people before me and my family who really shaped me. That identity also acknowledges, right, the socio-political circumstances that, you know, I'm hearing on this panel and that I navigate daily, right? It's just a person who's, you know, continuously experiencing, right, this ongoing process of, you know, settler colonialism, institutional racism, sexism, right, today. And so, you know, my identity is really informed by acknowledging that. And, you know, I don't claim to be pure in any regard. And so I hold very strongly to living my life as somebody who's just trying to grow as a human, grow as somebody who, man, in a world that wants you to hate so much about us, that loves myself, right? And is unapologetic about cultivating that in others to the extent that, you know, I'm able to, and just so, yeah, recognizing, right, a lifelong journey of growth and reconciliation. I think that word's really been resonating with me a lot. And so, yeah, like my colleagues, like Martina, I feel like my identity is really intertwined with giving honor and remembrance, right, of our families, of those who have been so instrumental in our lives, even in ways that we don't even like stop and take pause to think about.
Thank you so much. I really resonated with Kim when she said that we need to affirm people that we belong here, because I wish when I was younger and going into higher education that more people told me that I belong, especially like African American people. I only had a few telling me that I belong in these places, and I wish there was more people that did that for me. And thank you again for all of you. That was really inspiring to hear. So for the second question, we're going to have Dr. Du and Kim. And the question is, what are some challenges you have faced while pursuing your education? And how have those experiences motivated you to want to succeed?
Thank you, Bree. I can think of three that have had an impact. The first was my mom's health. About partway through my bachelor's, she started to have some significant health issues, and part of why I took the 3 years working before starting grad school was I was my mom's caregiver for a while. My mom pushed me, however, so it also is part of what pushed me to succeed, because she had not finished college herself. And she always just sort of put it out there that it was not an option. I was going to university. It was just sort of this assumption that was always there and coming strongly from her. She pushed me to take the highest classes I could in high school. She pushed me when I wouldn't have pushed myself. But it was a challenge when it was just me and her, and she had major health issues. So that was there throughout all of my schooling. And then getting a late start in grad school. Also, I kind of felt behind. It contributed to some imposter syndrome, because here I was with other people, all of whom seemed way smarter than me and way more prepared than me, or at least that's what it felt like. So I constantly felt like I was fronting, you know, just trying to get through, like, I'm going to be really quiet in class and just listen and take notes, because if I don't say anything, then they won't know I'm dumb or whatever, you know, whatever the feelings are, the insecurities in the moment, they were strong. And I skipped one. The second one was in undergrad. There was, I think it was Patricia, there was someone talking about jobs, and as an undergrad, Santa Clara was a private university, and they helped, financial aid helped, but I still had to work a lot, like most of our students do. And I remember I had to turn down a research assistantship in the psychology lab because it didn't pay as much as my real world jobs that had absolutely nothing to do with my career, but they paid better. I was a demo lady on the weekends at grocery stores, and I was a manager at a trophy shop, and I also did house sitting and dog sitting. So any job I could get to help with expenses. But it definitely, those things challenged me, but also motivated me to keep going, and definitely motivated me to, well, helped me really appreciate what I had and the value of the education, and to get the heck out in 4 years for my bachelor's if I could. Okay, sorry, Kim, tienes la palabra.
Gracias, Dr. Dub. So for me, my challenges were struggling navigating the system. I've always felt pressure to not fail because of all of the supporters rooting for me. I know that for me, when it came to, to enroll in the university, it was a financial burden for my family. So to fail for me was not an option. I also recall dealing with loss during my undergraduate. Halfway through my undergraduate career, I lost my maternal grandmother, which was really hard for me. And also, as the oldest sibling, I always felt pressured, pressured to set an example for them. And eventually, when it came time for them to go into higher ed, for me to serve as a resource to them. But those were some of my challenges. And additionally, now being in higher ed, some challenges that I currently face is finding my sense of belonging, being assertive, voicing my needs, my opinions. I recall that a lot of my thoughts during my undergraduate and even now is, do I know enough? Do I deserve this? Just like Dr. Dub said, like I struggled with that imposter syndrome because I never felt like I was really enough or I didn't know enough. So I recall that for me, it wasn't up until I joined an on-campus workshop where they spoke about this imposter syndrome. For me, it was like, going through the checks, like, okay, I feel that. Yeah, that's me. And from that, I took that I wasn't alone. And I really had to get over that, I need to do this by myself. And I'm not saying that I exactly know, everything right now, but at least I know to be a little more gracious with myself. And it's like, I belong here. I've worked hard for this. And I'm slowly but surely learning how to cope with those feelings. And it's real. A lot of students battle this in silence because I know I did. But thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dub and Kim. I am sitting here with my camera off but smiling because I can relate to, those days where I would get off of my job on campus as a student assistant in the counseling department office, and then I'd walk over to the Save Mart Center because I was a parking attendant after hours. And then, in the summers, I was taking surveys, calling people to take surveys, and depending on, how many surveys I got, it's how much I got paid. So I thank you for sharing. It brings me back to those days. And but even also, Kim, thank you for sharing that, and Dr. Dub, about the sense of belonging and the imposter syndrome. Personally, I think it's something that never ends. That next time that you're wanting to go for a promotion or you're trying to fight for equitable pay, I think it's something that in the back of our mind, I know that I struggle with that all the time. So thank you for sharing that and allowing me to to relate and with your stories. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. So this next question is going to be for Dr. Lopez and Martina. And the question is, according to the United States Census Bureau, Latina women 25 years of age and older are second to the lowest in educational attainment beyond a bachelor's degree. How can we work together to elevate women of color, especially Latina women pursuing higher education?
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Okay, I'll start. I think that there's many things we can do. I mean, but to begin, we know that we're already a long way, away from the educational equity before the pandemic. And now with the COVID-19, there's even more, the disparities, have even increased, and they're a lot more wider. So I think it's very important that we remind our women, that are here, that they're not alone, that they feel the support, that they know that we care, that we make them aware of the resources, the services that are available here on campus. The things sometimes that we take for granted, like jobs on campus, instead of them having to, work somewhere else where they will not have that flexibility. That we make them aware of programs such as TRIO programs that provide even sometimes financial support, the tutoring, all those other services, and the advising, and that they have staff that can connect with them because they come from similar backgrounds. I think one way that we can help them and support them is by helping them not feel bullied or harassed or discriminated. We need to make sure that we continue to improve our campus climate, that we make campus, feel very welcoming to them, and give them that sense that we want them here, that this is where they belong. We need to acknowledge them, that if they're moms, we hear them. We know that they're not just students. They have many, as women, we have many other roles that and responsibilities, that we have. We're, like some of us have mentioned, we're daughters, meaning that maybe we have parents that are aging. So we don't just come in with, when it's the first time freshmen. So for women that are 25 and over, we know that more than likely, they are working jobs, they have many other responsibilities. So it's important that we motivate them, that we acknowledge them, that we make them feel heard, and that we continue to improve the access so that they can complete, the studies, the degree that they came here for, so that they can graduate and feel, completed and fulfilled, so that then they can go back and be those role models for their children or their siblings. I think it's also, lastly, I'll say that it's imperative, that we continue to recruit and retain the faculty of color, so that when our Latinas or women come here, they see themselves, and that they also know, because we know that when we retain our faculty, or there's faculty of color, we know that works, that has helped improve the student success. So again, it's important that we don't imagine something, but that we understand that the students, the women that we're serving, and that we don't just get a cookie cutter and think, okay, this should work, but that we actually get to know the needs that they have and get to know them as individuals. Thank you.
And thank you, Martina, and thank you, Esteban, for this question. Actually, this was the question I thought the hardest on, and I'm going to take a bit of a different approach, but I think it really does coalesce with what Martina and Dr. Dowd have been mentioning, or sorry, Martina was just mentioning, but some things that Dr. Dowd also from the previous question. And, I think, the portrait, I think when we look at the portrait, we should also look at and acknowledge that Latinas are actually, in fact, making some pretty major academic breakthroughs as well, right? Millennial Latinas in particular, with associate's degrees and associate, bachelor's, and graduate degrees actually have grown 70% over the last 2 decades. And I think it's important to acknowledge and celebrate that as well, right? Because we also don't celebrate those things. And a lot of it is really related to what Martina has just mentioned. Latinas are also outpacing Latino males, right? So that's also something that really sits with me when I think about questions like that. In California, and certainly at Fresno State, right, this growth is even better. In the Kremen School where I teach, Latinos generally are almost 70% of all of our students, and 81% of them are Latina, right? So in fact, Latinas, when we think about it, right, are the archetype of the Fresno State student. If we were to look at the data, the most common face at Fresno State is a first-generation Latina student who is local from the Valley, who comes from a working class household. And by that, I mean that about 20% of our students are from families with a household income of $24,000 or less. about 41% are from families with a household income of 48,000. That's here at Fresno State. So think about that almost half of our students are from households that don't allow them to purchase a home in the Valley, right? This is the place, the Valley, everyone privileged people say, oh no, it's still affordable in the Valley, not to the average student who's attending our campus, right? So it goes back to what Dr. Dowd was saying, man, out there just hustling, working 2 or 3 jobs, having to make these decisions to pay the bills, man. Like, this is the reality of our students. And we don't always see that. We don't always talk about that. But that's something that they're carried, right? So what do we do to work together on that? You know, I just think about, you know, broader, right? So, and on top of also being a faculty, I mean, I'm also a researcher, I'm a trained scholar. I'm still paying for my education that gives me the tools to really, you know, dissect and understand the experiences and the broader society, right? And, you know, I think about the fact that Latinas who have obtained associate and even higher education are still making less than white male counterparts, right? Latinas earn 54 cents for every dollar, right, that a non-Hispanic man would make, right? And by virtues of demographics, like, this is going to continue to grow. These patterns may continue to grow. So for me, elevating Latinas is beyond, right? It's about the things Martina said, is making sure that our campus is inviting, embraces them, but it also goes beyond the realm of getting them into higher education and really thinking about our role as institutions of higher learning to talk about and address these contextual factors, right, that are impacting them outside of campus, right? The fact that Latinas as well as Black and Native women are still dealing with access to healthcare, right? In 2020 and 2021, 25% of Latinas had no health insurance, right, during a pandemic. And this is compared to 8% of white women, right? Got to sit with this, right? Latina women face higher mortality rates for breast cancer compared to non-Latinas and have the highest rate of cervical cancer, right? We got to think about this, man, right? This is also part of these realities, right? So for me, it's about being real. Getting a degree does not shield Latinas or Black women or Native women or Hmong women, for that matter, from, you know, these systems of oppression, right, that are really part of their quality of life and how they navigate this system. So for me, that is also part of what I see as my role and the role of higher ed to attend to, right, to attend to these things. So, you know, so just, you know, the act of getting a college degree is major. We celebrate that, but getting the degree and the piece of paper does not grant immunity from these social realities that Latinas face. And so I think it's important for us as a campus, to what my colleagues mentioned, talk about it, let's name it, and let's hold ourselves to being part of, you know, dismantling and taking care of all the needs and experiences of these students.
Thank you so much. All of that information was just, I was sitting there like, I was like in shock almost, because I didn't realize all of the statistics that make it harder for women of color, especially Latino women, to get there, even if you're there, to even get higher. You know what I mean? I never realized that. So it was really inspiring to hear both of you. So for question 4, we're gonna have Dr. Dow and Kim again. And this question is, how can men become allies to women or women identifying people in higher education? And this can mean staff, faculty, administrators, etc.
Kim, do you want to start?
I sure can. I would say men can become better allies by listening to our voices, listen to what we have to say, but also be willing to engage in meaningful conversations. This is, you know, none of this mansplaining, but sometimes we also have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Know that it's okay, and sometimes that is a really good way to learn. Also remember that it simply doesn't mean that, you know, you're committing to being an ally, because it's also important to inform oneself. And as I say, actions speak louder than words. It really comes down to taking informed action. Yeah. Dr. Dow?
Thank you. this was the hardest question for me thinking about it. And so I thought back to over the years, men who I have considered allies or mentors. I mean, even as a kid, you know, my padrino, and I looked for a common denominator, and I think it's openness. Openness to openness being the nice way of saying don't make assumptions, right? Because all of us, every human being, we all have a lot of different facets to our identity. Our gender is one of them, but there are so many more gender, whether someone's a mother, a daughter, a caregiver, a student, all of these things are facets of who we are, but no individual one facet sums up who we are. We are the sum of all of these pieces. And so by suspending assumptions and just being open to us, to women and women identified people as human beings, as individuals, giving the same advice or opportunities or sharing the same conversations as a human being, I think that's the strongest way to be an ally. And there's a flip side of that. In my experience, it goes back to my mom again. She was a little unconventional. She was a lot unconventional. And so I didn't realize until recently how much of that rubbed off on me. So I think from an early age, I kind of questioned assumptions or expectations society has for gendered behavior. Like, wait, I can't do this because I'm a girl. That's dumb. So I would just do it anyway if I could get away with it. And my mom supported that. Bless her, she supported that. So also by not allowing myself to be sort of pigeonholed and told, here's how you must behave, or these are your opportunities because you're female, screw that. Sorry, to heck with that. And the same goes for men. I mean, I remember my godbrother and cousins, you know, they were discouraged from showing their emotion. To heck with that. That's ridiculous. They're human beings. Every human being has a right to share their emotion. So I think just focusing more on what an individual human being is capable of and supporting and encouraging that is the most productive way to be an ally, and also the most productive way for us to advocate for ourselves as well. Just be. Don't ask permission. Just pick up the thing, do the thing. Be who you are. Okay, that's my crazy suggestion or thought on it.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kim and Dr. Dub. That was very, very inspirational. Lots of takeaways from that. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. Before I do, though, I would, I know we're getting close to the 1 o'clock mark, and a lot of people are probably starting to sign off because it's, you know, the lunch hour, have to get back to work. So thank you, you know, those of you that are leaving for joining us, and then just look out for a survey. I believe Esteban is going to be sending out for some feedback. So with that, the next question is for Dr. Lopez and again, Martina. So as women in higher education leadership roles, what are some limitations and or challenges you have experienced? And what can your institution do to support you?
Okay, I'll go next. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. So some of the, okay, so let me see, where do I begin? Some of the limitations or challenges, you know, have been many. I think that not only this institution, but, you know, women in general, you know, we know that we have to prove ourselves more. We have to work almost double or triple, you know, as hard to be able to advance and be in those leadership positions. I think here at our institution, you know, there's very few of us in leadership roles, so we could certainly benefit by having more, you know, and others in those roles to be at the table so that we can converse and support one another, so that we don't feel that, okay, there's only one and we look around and it's like, oh, I'm the only one or something. So that's one of the things that I think have been one of the challenges or limitations over the years. You know, I've been here at Fresno State, again, I mentioned earlier, over 30 years, and I can count the individuals or the women that I've seen in leadership roles. You know, I think there's sometimes very little opportunity for advancement. I think, like I mentioned, we have to prove ourselves more. We have to work harder. There's also that disadvantage when it comes to salary, that for some reason, men apply or the position's there and it's taken by a female or women, and then the pay, it's decline or it comes less. What our institution could do to support it's what I mentioned, the things that I mentioned that were challenges is hire more in the leadership role, support the work that we do, and check in without us having to go and ask on some of the things that it's needed. We shouldn't have to ask for things that are part of our job. That's something that if we're being asked to do something, then the budget needs to go hand in hand with that without us having to say, okay, well, how am I gonna create or achieve this work or this event or whatever it's being asked of us. I also think that some of the challenges that I've seen over the years is that when we have women that move into those leadership roles, sometimes the other women did not support. It becomes more of what's the word that I'm looking for? Instead of united and be happy, it's more of not envy, but more of that lack of support of, how can I help you and how do I maintain you there kind of a thing, so that, we unite and continue to move forward.
I echo everything that Martina just said. And yeah, I think that even what Martina, what you said earlier in one of the other questions is just having such a long history here at Fresno State and being able to see this pattern with this very, like the turnover in low representation. I think that's real. I think that the overtaxation, right, when we do see Latinas go into the leadership positions, how it hazes them, how it really exhausts them. At the same time, to Martina's point, right, at the same time that you're dealing with these intergroup politics, and that's the institution doing its job, right? That's the competitive nature of the institution, and needing to have spaces where we're really thinking about that. Why is it that folks are not supporting one another, and that we're losing so many? And I know from a student perspective, because I think there are a lot of students on here, I know as a student, I didn't understand or know the difference between a full-time tenured track professor and an adjunct lecturer, right? And I think it's really important because sometimes students can walk in and they can see, oh yeah, we have a lot of, Latina professors, right? But overwhelmingly, they are in the adjunct part-time temporary pool. They are not full-time. There's a very big difference in terms of institutional voice, ability to have a say. And so I think that's an important nuance for students to see, that you may have 5 classes in the semester and 3 of them are Latinas, but it could be very likely that all 3 of them, right, are teaching part-time. They don't get a voting, they don't serve on committees. And that's also speaking to what Martina is saying, right? It's not only just being here and having a presence here, but having institutional power, right? A voice and the ability to take part in the governance of this institution and the decision making. Yeah, I'll end there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Both of you, those were really empowering words. So for our coming up on our final question of today's panel, it's going to be for all panelists, and each of you will have about 1 minute to answer the question. And the question is what advice or recommendations would you like to share for the upcoming generation of women pursuing their degree and/or degrees?
I can go ahead and start us off. I would say my advice to upcoming generation of women in higher ed is to fearlessly take up space. Thank you to one of my fellow healers that said this, and it really spoke to me. Voice your opinions, your thoughts. Don't question if you belong, because if you are here, it's because you belong here. Don't be afraid to unlock your full potential. Another quote that really speaks to me is that to get through the hardest journey is that we need to only take one step at a time, but keep on stepping. There will be days that, that may be difficult. There may be days that are easy, but persevere, keep going. And also, another great colleague and friend once told me, think about what drives you and why you are doing what you're doing. Who do you bring with you during those challenging times? Whether they are here or not, always bring them with you and make those people proud. Thank you.
I'll go. Thank you, Kim. I'd like to dovetail into that. When life throws a challenge at you, keep plugging along as best you can. Be true to yourself, first and foremost. Be true to yourself. And keep plugging along. Do the best that you can on that day, whatever your best may be that day. Don't compare it to other days, just that day. Knowing that each day our best is different, and that's okay. If you fall, get up, be gentle with yourself, and persevere. Si se puede. We've got Cesar Chavez celebration this month, and si se puede still works for so many things for us. So si se puede, you've got this.
The advice that I would give, or recommendation, would be to, let your voice be heard. Obtain your education, because with that, it's something that no one will take away from you. And take your seat at the table. If it's not you, then who? So don't wait for someone else to nominate you. Be the one to, set the foot forward and take a risk. If you fail, then it's experience that you've gained. So don't let fear keep you, from making those decisions and moving forward. Because you have maybe not only family watching you, but you have, believe me, you have someone that you're gonna inspire, and you're gonna make them believe in themselves also. So it's important that you take action and not wait for later, because life is very short. So you wanna, utilize every minute of it. Time is precious, like the same time is money. So thank you.
And on that last note there, for me, it's, protect your health and protect your joy, right? It's one thing to ascend, to get into higher ed and ascend, or in any field, right? It's another to ascend intact, right? So develop your healthy boundaries, right? What's enough, when it's enough, right, for you, and to give yourself permission to know that your boundaries are yours, and that nobody but you has the right to develop them. Check in with yourself, and surround yourself with people who just care about you, right? Not just people who check in and be like, oh, what do you have going on? What events? Like your productivity, but people who care about your family, like just like, hey, what's going on? How's, I know you like to, I like to swim, right? I know you like to swim. Have you been getting to the pool? Have you been doing this? Like people who, want to, and distinguish that, right? Because it's important to have colleagues and people who help to push you, classmates, things like that, right, academically. But it's very important to have circles of folks who are also, caring about you as a full person.
Thank you. Thank you all for those thoughts, and I can relate. And the last part, Dr. Lopez, thank you for sharing about the self-care. We often forget. We get so busy with our daily routine and our daily obligations and what we're doing, and we forget to take a moment and just step back, breathe, and take care of ourselves. And in order for us to be able to help other people, we got to make sure that we take care of ourselves. So self-help or self-care is so important. So thank you for reminding me of that. And as we get closer to the end of our session, our panel session, it's now the time to open it up for questions to the audience. So audience, I would like to welcome you, whether you raise your hand or you can just take yourself off of mute or drop a question in the chat box, and then Bria and I can go ahead and facilitate that. Let me see if we have any. I do have one from earlier. So I'll just, as we wait for other people to drop some more, I'll go ahead and ask this one, and it's open to anybody. So what does Women's History Month mean to you? Someone is wondering.
I think it's a pause button. I think with any of the other months that we name, I think it's just an intentional moment where people agree to push pause and to center on something. I definitely don't see it as the way to truly acknowledge and, you know, embody a respect or a, yeah, I don't think that it's what you should aspire to do to honor women. I think, you know, but I think, you know, in its simplest form, it's a pause button, you know, that we all agree, ma'am, and press pause and let's uplift. Let's have a panel like this.
We just have some reading some kudos in the chat box. People saying thank you. And
I had a question earlier from someone when we were talking about how can men help, like, be allies to women. It was, how can women encourage the dialogue with men of how to be better allies, or how to, like, join those conversations?
I would say one way would be to remove some of those stereotypes. You know, I think traditionally, especially in our Mexicanos or Latino communities, you know, we have expectations sometimes that we make assumptions without even asking. We just assume this is the way that it would be. So we know, you know, that nowadays it's not the mother that stays at home and takes care of the kids. You know, the mom, it's also working. So understanding and being supportive, and, you know, that it's not, well, the mom or the wife will do this or that, or even in relationships now, it's not where, you know, there's a mom and a dad, a male, a female, you know, it could be a couple raising children of the same genders. So understanding that we're not maybe like our abuelitas, you know, or what they maybe saw or they grew up with believing, but that it's changing and we're evolving as individuals, and, you know, that we have younger generations that are watching. So if we want things to improve, you know, and God knows that this world that we're currently experiencing, you know, there's so many more things that we could improve. We can start making that change with us first and foremost before we expect the change or things from others. So I think, you know, for me personally, I'm blessed that at my own home, you know, it's not, oh, I cook, I do this. It's whatever needs to get done. Whoever gets there, you know, wash the hands and start, you know, chopping away, because, you know, there's no, that's mom who does it, or this is the other person. It takes teamwork and unity in order for us to move us forward to achieve things.
thank you. Thank you for sharing, Martina. I do have, there's another question in the chat box. So it's, with few tenured positions available and an overabundance of adjunct faculty positions, what is the incentive to go into higher education? Have any of you considered leaving higher education to go into the private sector?
This is a question I've thought about a lot over the years. And I'll answer the second part first. No, I haven't really considered leaving higher education, but I am privileged to have a PhD and be in a tenure line. I have tenure. It's hard work to get it, though. It's very hard work to get it. It's very, very competitive. And I'm in a field where everybody wants a Spanish professor somewhere. It's just a matter of where you're going to land. and how long you're going to be an adjunct usually if you actually have the PhD, but not always. I mean, we have some very talented adjunct faculty right now who have PhDs. So it's a valid question. And the best I could say is I think it really is intensely personal. It's an intensely personal decision whether to go into higher education. And it also depends on your field. There are some fields where it might be more lucrative in the private sector. In other fields, you can do more meaningful work in a university setting. So I don't know, Dr. Lopez or Martina, Kim, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I adjunct in the CSU for 3 years before landing my previous tenure track position. I was there for 3 years and it was important to me. So I think, I think your intentions are also really important, and staying true to what education is. Like education, higher ed in particular, it's a means to an end, right? And so what is that like, what role is that? And being okay with the fact that it could be different for everyone. For some people, it is an economic imperative. I need to do this because this will allow me to provide for my family or to do A, B, and C. For others, it may be a means to something else, right? I want to be part of, I may not get paid a lot of money, but I want to be part of preparing future teachers, right? I want to be part of examining, right, why it is that healthcare is so inaccessible, right? So I think it's always trying your hardest to stay grounded in what higher education is a means to and for, right? So I'll start there. And if it is a means to something in the spirit of what Dr. Daub said, such as it was for me, then you're in it for the long run, right? I'm in it for the long run, right? So I knew going in, and I was mentored to be very clear. This was not like, I was very clear coming in. I knew the chances of getting a tenure position, right? Just like you all, many of you knew the chances of you getting into a 4-year institution, right? No somos pendejos. We know this stuff, right? We know this stuff. I knew that there was a chance that I was going to have to adjunct, get my hustle on, work 2 or 3 different jobs for a while before I even broke into the tenure track. And when I was there, that I was going to have to I do have to work 10 times harder, right? Do 10 times more shit than other people, right? To all get to, so that this year, this academic year for me is year 10 that since I've had a PhD, and year 10 that I've been teaching in the CSU. And it is barely the year that I'm going up for tenure, right? That I have been probationary the entire time. So I think it's about some of these really real talk conversations, right? The world is not handed to us, but when we get here, man, Dr. Daub, do we make a difference, right? On what it looks like, because there are other communities and other people who are struggling. And so when you have to experience that and you get there, to Martina's point, you're sitting at the table, you're going to be intentional about, it shouldn't be this hard. Shouldn't be this hard. People shouldn't have to walk this far to get to the table, right? They shouldn't have to just know somebody, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. That was really inspiring. There's another question in the chat box saying, what are your thoughts about getting family to buy into encourage participation in higher ed, especially now when working can be the priority?
The advice that I give usually students when, they say, I don't need a college education, I can just go get this type of training, this is what I need, or they have a need, those of us that come from large families, like my older siblings, they needed to work. I'm sure they wanted to go and go to college. They were certainly bright enough to do that. What I tell the young generations when I'm advising them or meeting with them is that they need to take advantage of the opportunities that they have in front of them. And with an education, again, it's an investment. and they don't know, they can't predict what 5 years will look like, 10 years. So it's better to have that degree on hand where then they will have choices and be prepared so that they don't have to then work on getting prepared. So that's one way that I let them know. And then, I go further and I say, you're going to make money. I get it. You need food on the table, because that's what my older siblings did. And I'm forever grateful for them. But I also share my story with them to let them know of how with an education, my life has improved, not only mine, but that of my children and even my grandkids now. And I compare that even, with my older siblings that weren't as fortunate because they sacrificed to provide and put that food at the table and work, which was immediate demand that they had. Now, that they've gotten older, they have more aches and pains, less resources, less choices of how they will live the rest of their years, So I always paint it real and let them know that this is not, whatever job they're making the money with is not going to be something that may be there. And then I usually close, my advice with them by saying, nothing is forever, other than, some debt. So those are the conversations that I always make the time so that I really make them think instead of them just thinking short term, but really see their life longer and what they want, what are their goals that they want.
Thank you, Martina. I'm going to go ahead and there's quite a few questions. So let me go to the next one. So for the PhD level faculty, how are you pushing for the campus to increase its Latina faculty? While we teach, a good portion of the students are Latinas, the representation in faculty is awful, especially in the sciences. In what shape is the intentionality taking place?
This one I can speak to. I've served as an EEOD on search committees, equal employment opportunity. I can't remember what the D is for now, but the outside person on any search committee in any department, the university has a policy where there has to be an outside person from another college to kind of supervise and make sure that the search committee in the department is not accidentally or on purpose doing anything inappropriate, that there's no discrimination, that they are following all of the procedures, that they are opening up the search and casting a very broad net to seek out people of color, to seek out just as many, as diverse a pool of candidates as possible. And the EEOD job is a very, very important one. I highly, highly encourage any faculty here who are listening, please sign up to be an EEOD. Yes, it's extra work, but it's really worth it. It helps our campus, it helps other departments, and it's an opportunity for the person serving to learn how other departments do things. So I've served in the sciences. I see that the question references the sciences in particular. I've served on, I think, 3 search committees in the sciences, and it's your job to speak up if you see anything that needs addressing. Or just to be there for the committee chair or committee members to bounce ideas off of and give suggestions. So it's not an adversarial, it doesn't have to be an adversarial position. We're all part of a team. And the goal of the team is, let's get the best hire for this job. And let's make sure that we're looking at all of the qualified people and that we're giving everyone a chance to see this ad and to reply to this ad. So that's one way. It's serving as an EEOD on other search committees. Within departments, really trying to cultivate that awareness. We are an Hispanic serving institution. Our students relate to, I mean, having more faculty of color, Latinos, African American faculty, Hmong faculty, it's helpful for our students. I always say, of course, we want qualified people. It's a non-starter. We don't want to just fill a position as the word used to be token. That's bad for everybody. That's bad for everybody. That makes us all look bad, whether it's based on gender, ethnicity, cultural background, sexuality. We want people who are qualified. And so making sure that the information is out there broadly, and making people feel welcome during the interview process. really trying to have that personal connection, even if it's through Zoom interviews, trying to connect with people and let them know, hey, here are the resources we have on our campus. You are welcome here. There is a place for you here. There's a fit for you here, and let us know what else we can do to help you feel supported here. That's things that departments themselves can do. And I think there are varying levels of success. Some maybe have a little more room to grow. Okay, a lot more room to grow than others. And some I think are doing really well. But it's, I'm trying to focus on the positive because it's changed a lot in the 16, 17 years I've been on campus. It's improved a lot, and there's still room for improvement. So yeah, that's some of the intentionality. Dr. Lopez?
Yeah, no, I think you said above and beyond, just having been here so long, Dr. Daub. But yeah, I think the one piece I really want to underscore is getting the word out, right? We have folks across this country who are obtaining PhDs at amazing institutions who are highly overqualified for our positions, but it's on us to make sure that when we have job calls out, especially in these high need areas. I know our colleague, Dr. Banuelos from math is on here, being intentional about getting the word out so that they are aware. And to Dr. Daub's point, when they actually get interviews, show up, support them, reach out to them, say, hey, if there's something you want to know about this campus, let me know, right? We have to be intentional about doing that, in addition to everything that Dr. Daub had mentioned.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez, and thank you, Dr. Daub. And I think it's about time to close up. So on behalf of the Latino Faculty and Staff Association and CCGC, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to meet with us and have this panel discussion. It was thoroughly enlightening at times and emotional at times for me. So thank you for being in this space for people to listen to your stories. And see themselves reflected in your journeys. So thank you. For the attendees, just a reminder, Esteban will be sending out a survey. So if you could, please take the survey and give us some feedback, that would be wonderful. And just for everybody, have a great rest of your week. Take care.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.